Today, on The Solution Zone, we lean forward beyond COVID-19 to give you a brief peek behind the scenes of a group economic effort that's underway to create a rising tide for people of color that will raise all boats in its wake. We start with a historic look back at the solution of group economics.
And this is a chart that I think says in another way what he so profoundly provided us today. This chart to me represents beautiful, educated, moneyed black people all over America. It could represent black organizations, it could represent black churches, it could represent black social and civic organizations. And what you will notice about these beautiful black people all over America is that everybody is doing their own thing, caught up in a Eurocentric value of rugged individualism, having forgotten that it takes a village to raise a child. There is no power here, brothers and sisters. There is no power here. Power is most effective concentrated. You can take a 55-gallon drum of water, spill it over, it will disperse, find its own level, and eventually evaporate. You can take that same 55-gallon drum of water, put it under pressure, put a lid on it, put a hose in it, put a nozzle on the end of that hose, and it can cut concrete. There is no power with us being disconnected. See, there's nothing wrong with dispersion. I live in Cleveland, you live in Atlanta. We have folk in the Caribbean, we have folk in Africa. That's dispersion. That's okay, but we do not have to be disconnected. We are a disconnected people. We are powerless in disconnection. This is where all the power is. You see? This is where all the power is. Whether you are at the center of your own network or part of someone else's network, this is where the power is. There's a beautiful African proverb that says, when spiders unite, they can tie up a lion. When we connect, because we are disconnected, we're disconnected from those of like mind. We're disconnected from the best practices in our community. I don't care what it is that you want to do, what profession you want to engage in, what business you want to get into. I can introduce you to brothers and sisters all over America they are doing it to death. You just don't know who they are. You are disconnected from them. There is no power in disconnection. Okay? When we connect, we prevent interlopers from coming into our communities and taking and destroying at will.
All right, George.
Try to open up the Booker T. Washington delicatessen in Chinatown and see what happens. So we must connect. We must connect the dots. That must be the movement for our people in the 21st century. We need a lot of us doing a little instead of a few of us doing a lot. We need to get together to get ahead.
Now I'm going to go ahead and stop that right there because, well, one, it almost ends right there. And then second, it opens up the door for us to have an opportunity about another powerless action that we participate in consistently, which is a whole bunch of rhetoric. That piece that you saw was familiar to me, and I remember it being familiar to me because I heard it, I want to say about a decade ago, right? That very strong, that very, meaningful concept about us uniting and doing things together in, a group fashion, similar to the, group economic call of people like Dr. Frank Anderson. These concepts and ideas have been espoused for decades, and they've been just lip service and rhetoric. This is a season that we need to get out there and actually be about the process of doing it, building it. And we're blessed with a season where the playing field has been leveled. It has been completely leveled from an economic perspective. And this is a season where we have to use the power of asking. Because if we don't, and history is any predictor of the future, the powers that be are not going to be taking our interest into consideration as they go through the planning process. And you guys know where we fall on the ranking, right, in this nation, much less this world. So when we hear code coming from them today, we need to react to it aggressively. And you guys have heard that old adage that, you know, when America gets the flu, the Black community gets metastatic cancer. When this community says to us that we are about to suffer, that means that our community is about to experience the kind of traumatic outcome that I think will rival the things that we saw during slavery. So it is critical for us, and I'm talking about the conscious, enlightened people of color, to get our narrative out there, because we've got some different camps out there that are trying to position themselves during this season. And what has happened is the playing field for the wannabes, the playing field for the people that took the meritorious monumentum awards, right? And did hits for the man, right? The playing field for them has been leveled, right? Their stature has been snatched away from them and the veil has been lifted. And I think it's incumbent upon us to help those that are ready become a part of that tribe, that community that is taking charge of tomorrow's vision. What are your thoughts on that?
Walter, I think you are just right on with that. That was a powerful piece. I think that was Dr. Frazier in that, and he is totally dynamic, a leader in that. And it is time. It is time to connect the dots. It is time to share and to get on board, because this is huge. It's not just a territory. It's not a 9/11. It's not a Katrina. This is everybody, OUS including, and it is up to us. So it's time to do that. We've been hearing this, singing this song for far too long.
Well, let me just add to what the conductor shared there, Walter. I don't even know how to distill this, but this is called the solution zone for a reason. We do have a solution. We have a solution that's not only timely, but it's viable, it's operational, it's working. We have real live examples of how it's working. We need to just get those that are ready, willing, able to participate so that we can start to weave that spider web that was referenced there to make us strong as a community. We have the wherewithal. We have the resources. We have the know-how. We've got to marshal that. And this is one of those places, one of the few places, if not the only place that I've seen where that is actually happening. So we've got a responsibility here. And we shouldn't take that lightly at all, to go out and identify those people, or have those people self-identify, and to run them through the rigors of what it's going to take to do this well.
Marquise, do you have a thought?
I mean, you all mostly touched the different things to be said in regards to what you were saying. My biggest question is, okay, so now that we understand that, what's the next step? What's the process of making that happen?
Let's ask the question, like, what is that? Because we've got a lot of people out there that are operating from a point of fear right now, a very, very strong point of fear, because the uncertainty about what we are going to experience moving forward looms large. And it doesn't matter what camp you come from, right? Whether you come from that camp that's a part of the newly underserved, right? Those people that were a part of that portion of the population that couldn't withstand a $500 emergency without going outside for assistance, right? That portion of the population that has been slammed down into like the newly underserved, or whether you're a part of that population that got the wake-up call our professional athletes got, right? You really ain't in as much control and charges as you think, or you know you're a part of the mainstream Black elite that is recognizing that, hey, you're not a part of the 1%, right? You know, you're not really in the club. You were just hired to pull contracts for the man. Godfather, I see you chopping at the bit.
And I'm going to give you a real life example of the point you just made there, Walter. I've got an acquaintance. We share a mutual friend who is one of that Black elite that you just referenced. And having a conversation this week, this individual, you know, he's very well heeled, so much so that he owns a Rolls Royce dealership. Okay, so let's put that in perspective. And he shared with our mutual friend, I am hurting right now. And I thought to myself, well, at what level are you hurting right now? Your employees are probably really hurting, but it's all relative is my point, Walter. And as we level this playing field, everybody's got to hit the reset button. And as you hit that reset button, what are you going to do to make yourself a part of the critical spider web that catches what it needs to exist, to grow, and to move forward? That's my perspective.
Point well taken. And I think that from that point of view, it's incumbent upon us to be proactive as we lean forward into the needs of this particular recovery and not leave it to the powers that be to design what they think is going to work for us. Because as I said, if history is any predictor of the future, they're not going to be considering our needs. And as an example, one of the areas that I've been looking at is this whole food supply issue, right? The supply chain has been significantly disrupted. And as they talk about these food shortages that we are supposed to experience because of disruption in the supply chain, it's my imagination that our food deserts, right, the food deserts that are within our community are going to get no attention, right? And the efforts to revitalize supply chains that deliver food to that population is going to be the last thing that's going to be considered. So what I imagine, if I extrapolate that idea out, as we bring the system back online, your stocks of food in your suburbs are being replenished in a system of scarcity, right? So as they're replenished, right, people are coming in and they're, you know, raiding those shelves. Those are the people that are in those communities. The people that are in our communities are going to be relegated to have to travel to those communities for food because the government is going to come up with some type of a austerity solution, right, to put money in their pockets, you know, put some social solution in place. We are hearing talk about it now, $2,000 a month for everybody in the household, right? They're going to come up with money, but you can't eat money, right? So what'll happen is, and again, this is just high octane speculation, people from these urban communities are going to travel out honestly to these suburban communities to go and procure food and find the shelves empty. And they're only going to have to make that trip 1 or 2 times before on the way back home, Pookie and Day Day decide to do a little bit of shopping before they get back to the house. And that's going to precipitate a response. Now, proactively, we need to be delivering requests into the system that will overt that type of a solution, because what we're dealing with is a bullets or bread solution. And so I'm proactively, with a group of veterans, with a group of professionals, putting together a solution that we're taking to the powers that be and delivering it to them proactively to say, you need to do this in advance of this event happening, because if you don't do this in an election season, you're voting for bullets over bread. And we have to proactively take charge of that narrative in these areas of critical need that we have. And what I am taking the Godfather's urging to do is put that call to action out there, is to put that raw call to action out there that says, listen, we've got to break our addiction to the cycle of insanity. We cannot do the same thing over again in this new season and expect a different result. So if we didn't have a good yesterday, this is our opportunity to step out on faith and have the unmitigated gall to plan our tomorrow.
Couple of points, Walter. You're as usual spot on, and I'll tell you when you're not. But first of all, you got to be able to get to that food source. Okay, we're already challenged in a transportation way to get to where we need to get to in this age of a corona pandemic. Public transportation is either sketchy or non-existent, and it's dangerous on a number of levels. But again, unapologetically Black without being racist, there are resources out there that we are entitled to. We're old, we need to demand in that call. If some folks are getting EBT, if some folks are getting stimulus and stimuli and checks, like you said, you can't eat those things, but we've got to bring those resources to those communities. We've got an infrastructure that's already built to deliver that. We need leadership. We need that funding redirected to facilitate and make that functional in those communities. And oh, by the way, a rising tide lifts all boats. Crops being plowed under, 2 million chickens being euthanized on the eastern shore of Maryland just this week because nobody was there to process that. Delivery vehicles sitting idle while fuel costs are at an all-time low, but you can't go anywhere to do anything with them. Okay? Those are the kinds of things, those are the kinds of resources, those are the kinds of gaps that need to be stitched back together to form an effective solution to what our ongoing problem will be. Because there is a new norm. This will be a new day. How do you take places like restaurants that have shuttered in these communities? How do you take places like commercial real estate that's no longer even viable? Because guess what? We've all been working from home for the last X number of months or days, and I just found out that I'm more effective telecommuting than I am sitting up in a building that you own. So how do we repurpose that? How does that real estate segment repurpose that? I need refrigeration. I've got oystermen on the eastern shore of Maryland and Virginia that are leaving stuff unharvested. How do we take those things and get them out to where they're needed? There's infrastructure that already exists. We've got to repurpose it, and that's where we come in. We need to tell them what to do and how to do it, and tell them they've got to fund it, and here's why. Because our tide will lift all boats.
Well, we're going to say amen to that one, Godfather. Look at you. Just right on.
Now, this is something that, to me, get rich or die trying. That's where I'm at.
You know, Godfather, that was absolutely spot on and well stated. And this is an issue that I think we need to take control of. And we will be delivering commentary to that for the foreseeable future until we solve this problem, which I think we can make a tremendous contribution to. But there's another aspect of this need that we need to focus on. And that's, I think, the social spiritual aspect of this need. And our conductor, right, our First Lady, has put some effort into addressing that issue. Our conductor is going to spend a few minutes directing you down the pathway to freedom. Soraya, please take it away.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Cotton. I appreciate that. And Godfather opened it right up. I want to talk about the F word. The F word, faith over fear. All right. Now, we cannot go anywhere on this journey without pulling up what truly is our backbone and our pathway that it has been from days old. And that's all about faith. You know, we sit in the church and we talk about it, but when trouble hits, where are we? Okay. So I was reminded of that. And I'll just say my topic is all about what is this? Walter, when you put this together, you know, I'm all about music. I love Detroit sound. And out of that, Walter Hawkins, he had a song called What Is This? So again, if you can blend that in. But basically, it was all about whatever this is, it won't let me hold my peace. And I speak for us as a solution zone. We've come to a time in life, you talk about being prepared for a time such as this. You know, we're at this time in our life where we're able and blessed enough to give back. To give back. We dedicate so much time to giving back in order to help others. Okay. So I want us to challenge our listeners. As when we had a President Obama, he used to say that the small businesses are going to be the ones that create this change. And we're not hearing that anymore. So it's almost like begging permission. Do we need to give people permission to show up? Marquise, your group is coming up with a new word about pivoting. Okay, we're going to give people permission to pivot. And that's exactly what we need to do in order to create change. So when we talk about what is this, I want us to really dig deep and understand what is this? What is school? What does school look like anymore? You know, Godfather talk about he's more effective working at home. Truly love that. When I was in corporate America, I loved working from home. I'm not a TV watcher again, so I wasn't doing chores or anything. You're just more effective. And I think corporations are going to see that moving forward. So in that challenge, when we talk about what is school, what does homeschooling look like? What is church? Okay, we're talking about faith. What does church look like? You know, where you're able to reach out to the masses, everybody. All pastors and many others, evangelists I'm seeing online on Facebook, they're starting their own fan club, an own group as it relates to what is this. Dr. Cotton, you talked about shopping and food, and food deserts and things of that. What does shopping look like? So to challenge our listeners to the point of being creative, coming out and truly being creative, and not for the sake of just being creative, to partner with others, Solution Zone, to help strategize on how you can take that to the market. Okay, so again, if we're talking about giving people permission, I want to hone in on that pathway. When we come to a fork in the road, okay, and that's what I'm going to coin this COVID as, a fork in the road. You with me? So in this fork in the road, it used to be a segment. It was called Shift Happens. Okay, we got shift happening here, and what are we going to do to play that, or to be a part of that shift happening as we come into our fork in the road? Mindset. Okay, we may not be at a point for us as a group here to help people with mindset, but we need those that are already ready. What does that look like for you as far as mindset? You played the part for Dr. Frazier there, where he was talking about the web and us getting together and connecting the dots. If we have together collectively come to this point for a solution, we have a solution for you. Are you ready? Do you have what it takes? Are you ready to understand that? So when people come to us with ideas, hey, I have something that would solve that food desert. I have that, to help them get in position. Again, we have classes to help them understand how to do that. And in that, the government has changed. So since our biggest solution is the federal government, the government has changed. For instance, In the month of March, statistics show government spending for the SBA, Small Business Administration, they spent over $75 million with one small business vendor to, guess what? Help put people in place for this disaster recovery solution. In other words, for the money that's being issued out. They needed people, attorneys, lawyers, any legal people to come in and help these banks understand and interpret the rules. So one company got over $75 million check mark from the SBA. They went out to find these solutions. So solutions are looking a lot different now. They're spending on credit cards. I know that's one of the main things we talk about when you're getting registered with the government at the in the corporate classes we're giving. People are asking, well, why should I check the box that I do business on credit cards? Because guess what? The federal doesn't have time to put these solicitations out. It's green light go, and you got to be ready. So my challenge to those listening are, you have a group of people, believe it or not, that are here and ready. We've positioned, I can't say we position ourselves, but it has come that we are ready to give solutions out for those that are ready. And that is it, to strategize with you, to take whatever you have and help walk you through into opportunities that can be a blessing for you. Again, so from IT, construction, research and development, Bitcoin, what does that look like? Again, you have research and development that is open and opportunities are waiting there for solutions on introducing things like that. So it's not what you have been doing, but to ask yourself in your industry, what can I currently do or change in offering this solution to be the change that I need to see in my community? And the government has it there. So some of these things are not even open market. If you have the opportunity and we can help you put this on paper to walk it through, that's the kind of opportunities that are waiting there. Unsolicited, non-compete opportunities that are there for purchases to make that change, because COVID has changed the way we think and the way the government buys. So they're looking for you. You have not because you ask not.
Excellent sharing on the pathway to freedom from our conductor. And the conductor raised a significant question, which is, what does it look like, right? What is the post-COVID look like? And there are a lot of people that are of my age and ilk that are asking that question right now. But the truth of the matter is, we've had our season. Our season brought us to where we're at, and the person that accurately should be addressing this question on this call is the youth among us, right? Because while we're asking what it looks like, they should be answering the question what it should look like, because it's the world that they are going to inherit. And so I'm asking our future king, I'm asking our future leader to give us his perspective on how his generation is being impacted by this COVID event. Marquise Finney, are you with us, and can you bless us with some youthful wisdom?
I am here, Walter, and I'm glad you asked that question. Actually, this entire week, I've been going through some things and trying to just dissect what is really about to happen post-COVID-19. And the biggest thing is reshaping a world that I would want to live in, that I want to raise my children in, so that they can have the best abilities when they grow up. And the world that we've been living in is not one that I would advertise for my kids to grow up in. And so then I asked the question, said, okay, what issues need to be addressed in order to make this place, this community, these cities, somewhere where I want to raise my children? And as I start jotting stuff down, it's in every category that we are suffering and not having the resources that are needed. It's in the education, the health, the adults, the older generation. If we don't have the older generation, we see the COVID-19 has been targeting specifically the older generation. And with that, it's also been targeting the Blacks. And so you take those two together, and if you take out the older Blacks in a community that is already at a deficit, you're just taking out the wisdom and leaving a bunch of untamed, non-prepared children who have no idea what direction to go. And we've seen how much that impacts our communities alone with these fatherless homes and lack of leadership. So one of the biggest things that has to be addressed is the health situation that the COVID has made even more apparent than ever before. But the question is, how do we do that? Okay. There's already been a system created to where they say that there is health available to everyone, but we see that is not true. We can go to the hospital, doctor's office, and not receive the same care as everyone else. And because of that, we are literally dying. Whether it's because of that actual COVID or stuff that should have been addressed prior, that is resulting in the loss of the Black community. So with that being said, I have been working on creating multiple different ideas in my head, a system to where we can create health, education, mental health in our own neighborhoods, using the resources that are already available. And what this will do is it takes from what is already built, the infrastructure is already built, and it targets it directly into the communities that are lacking. With that being said, you know, we struggle with.
Marquise, I didn't really want to interrupt you, but you're saying something, and I want to make sure that the audience understands the frame of reference from which you are approaching this from, because what you just talked about is not something that, from my understanding, you are just conceptualizing. This is a solution that you're actually developing to deliver into this current situation. Is that accurate?
That is very accurate, Walter. I was dancing around it a little bit, but since you pointed it out, I'm just gonna lay it out. And I will start on the education side. I'll get to the health in a second. I'll start on the education side. In light of the COVID-19, we have seen that schools have been shut down. And not that the schools in our communities were good to begin with, but homeschooling is even more failure for our communities. One, most of the parents didn't have the correct education, so how can they homeschool and teach their children? And the community is right down the street. So instead of in North Charleston, if you go to Mount Pleasant, they have the ability to pay for tutors to come in and take care of their children. And if they don't, they had the prior education to do so. In our households, we oftentimes do not have that. And on top of that, it is a spike in ADHD for African Americans, specifically males. So how do you take a child that you don't know how to teach, you put him in his home and expect him to learn on a platform that was not ever taught to him to learn on? You don't. It's a failing process. So in order to create a system, I know the entire society is trying to back away from this direct approach, but this gives us the ability to take a public sector and turn it into kind of a private organization while using the public funding. And how we would do that is we would take the education system and say, all right, let's use these community centers that we have in our neighborhoods. But the catch is we don't want to actually use the community centers, because if we use the community centers and repurpose them, we're still taking away from our own neighborhoods. That's all we have currently is a community center. In a lot of different lower income neighborhoods, we have a community center. So we don't want to do that. What we want to do is we want to take the funding, and then we want to go to these old abandoned Piggly Wigglies or buildings. In every hood, there's these abandoned buildings that have been sitting there for years. So let's take this just open spaces there doing nothing, and let's repurpose it. Let's build it in a way where we can integrate our education, our mental health, our health into one location that is in the areas where we can get the service that we need. So in the education arena, not only are we taking it and putting it in the neighborhood, okay? Because we don't just want another school. One of the big things, I had the ability, actually, my mom took us out of the public school when she finally we had a family that was sponsoring us to go into private school. My mom couldn't pay for it at all. We were really low income, but they sponsored for us to go in. And what I noticed is there's a huge difference in the class size. They have that ability to get the one-on-one with the teacher, and that makes all the difference. That's actually why my relationship with Walter is so big, because the mentorship to actually speak directly with the person who is giving you the knowledge makes all the difference. So if we take, instead of having 1 to 30 classrooms, and make it 2 to 10, we're not replacing the teacher. We're just allowing people who have knowledge, tutors, to come into these facilities and have only 10. We're also trying to solve the issue of, we don't want too much direct contact with the COVID-19. So it's a response to that and easing back into the school system, okay? So we take a 2 to 10 approach where it's small classroom sizes, and they get they can ask the questions that they need to ask. And let's not even act like the 1 to 30 ratio is with a teacher who's willing to stay there all night. I went to private school. The teachers' class would end at 2:45, and they would be there till 8 o'clock. In our neighborhoods, the teachers don't really care. They just want to get paid. They get that checkbox, and they're out before the kids. But now, using the system, we can get the knowledge we need and have a direct ability to ask the questions that no one else wants to answer for us. Okay, that's just on the education side. All right. So then the other aspect is the health. We see there is an absence of real healthcare in the Black community. It's a big thing. Oh yeah, we're allowing you to go in just like everyone else. We're allowing you to be in the same beds and use the same equipment. But the reality is the people that are making decisions on who gets what don't look like us. And in a lot of cases, don't care. So how do we reprogram that system? Well, another thing right now is, now more than ever before, they are selecting who gets to go in the hospital, who gets to go into the doctor's office. They're like, okay, we can't have a bunch of people. So who do we think they're going to pull in? Who do we think is going to be allowed to go in? So my thing is, all right, let's use the same system we're using with the education and use it on the health. Okay. Majority of nurses in all hospitals, you go and look, are minorities. Okay. So it's not that we don't have the people that have the education to the healthcare. We just don't have the people that have the education and the resources to bring that into play in our communities. So let's use the resources from the public, set it up in a private arena, which is not really private, but it's the level of quality of a private because it's focused, okay? And we solve the problem of them saying, okay, we can't have too many people in a location. We solve the problem of them saying, okay, well, we have to go ahead and there's too many people and we don't have the resources to do this because we are targeting specific areas. So we can actually help our communities in the health field. And we can be on the preventative side because we can reach these illnesses and diabetes and different things and say, okay, you need to be doing this differently. We want to catch this before it becomes something, so that when the next pandemic happens, we're not dying at astronomical rates.
Can I interject something at this point, Marquise? Because you just laid out a very attractive solution, and I just want to make sure that I'm seeing it in my mind the way you're laying it out. So what I think I hear you talking about is the creation of a integrated delivery solution that would take these complex but common needs and provide that one one-stop shop for people in underserved communities. Is that accurate?
That is 100% accurate. Because instead of, we won't be teaching, we'll be educating. The teachers will still teach, so to speak, but we'll be actually doing the education. In the health field, we won't just be diagnosing and saying words, we'll actually have people who care and is targeting what is really happening. And the only piece that we're missing now, if you take an educated person who is healthy, you're almost there, but you're not quite there yet to get to the level of succeeding. The next thing you need, and Soroyo hit this on this earlier, is a mindset. So now, not only are we going to have education and health, we're going to bring in the mental health, okay? Because for long in our communities, mental health has been taboo. One reason, because what happens in the home stays in the home. And reason number two is we never had the availability to actually get those services. You know, mental health is actually what in the United States, actually in the world, there is more money spent on mental health than any other healthcare. Actually, it doubles cancer worldwide. And with that being said and that's not us spending the money. So with that being said, that means this is something that is really focused on. In my family, we've had experience because we run a mental health facility. In the other neighborhoods, I remember very clearly this woman, she said, I require my kids at a certain age to go and speak with someone, a therapist, because I know at a certain age, they no longer talk to me about what they're going through. And I need them to be on a mental level where they can succeed. So they understand the value and they have the ability, the money, and the people who care enough to put that in their communities. So I'm saying, why don't we do the same? We take this and we address it directly in our neighborhoods. And we say, okay, let's work on the wholesome of the family. Let's work on the ADHD that Tyquez has where he's running around and can't focus on schoolwork. Let's take all these things and let's focus on them so that we create a true center of wholeness. And let's do all this and have the government pay for it in response to COVID, but then they will see that this is not only a response to COVID, this is a response to the neglection that has been happening in our communities for years. And we can create something real and true that is actually going to work for years to come. And
Godfather, I have a question. What is your perspective on what this young man is sharing?
My perspective is bravo. Marquise, you nailed it. You have really distilled not only what the requirements are, but what a better future should look like, and one that we should aspire to, but also one that we have the ability to make happen. Everything that you said is not only doable, but it is critically important that we get accomplished and we get started right away, because the money's there, the infrastructure's there, the resources are there. We just need that catalyst and that plan that you've already laid out and the wherewithal to make it happen. And that's in communities throughout the country. Again, that rising tide is going to lift our boats, but we can't leave it to somebody else to get us in the boat and to create the tide to rise it.
Madam Conductor, we just heard the wisdom from the mouth of Babes. Is this a concept or idea we as the older generation should be diving behind and supporting? What are your thoughts about the wisdom of the youth?
Oh, I am just so excited and so proud of Marquise. He just nailed it in all ways, not just talking about it, he's being about it with with solutions. And I can relate to that actually as an older generation. My son actually, when he first went to school, we were in Bloomington, Indiana, home of IU University. Again, predominantly white. He was the only African-American student, not only in his class, probably one of three in the entire elementary school. So again, he being my first and oldest, I was quite unsure of, what the learning curriculum should have been, but I knew that the basics, he wasn't where he's supposed to be. So bottom line, I did take him out of school and I homeschooled him probably for about 3 or 4 years. And in that, I saw that he had the potential, while the other teachers were saying, oh, he's just a little slow, he's, whatever. It's like, no, again, he had an supposedly ADHD issue, but if you what I call white wall his world. So let me dive into that a little deeper since I have some experience around there. So kids that are ADHD, you do have to white wall their world. So I would do things like, for instance, I'll put him in the bathroom. I took him out of his room when I homeschooled him. It was too busy, too many things on the wall, too many distractions looking out the window, all of those things. So I white walled his world, and truly, I put you in the bathroom. I had a little TV table at the time. You're doing your homework here. When you finish, come out, that kind of thing if it's a short assignment. But sometimes you have to white wall their world. And it's those type things that when you know how to do them as an educator, as Marquise talked about, then you can help your kids. Kids, it's not that they don't want to learn. They need teachers that have the tools to help them. So I thought that solution that he delivered was right on. Not only that, it helps solve some job issues. There are so many people now. I've talked to his godfather, say he had some friends. I just got off the phone last night with a female that was saying, Soroya, I don't know what to do. She's a grant writer, which I'm like, wow, you're in a great space. So we're talking, but it's those kind of things that are prevalent right now. People are at that fork in the road, in that pathway, and they don't know which way to go. It's not even like they feel that they have options. They don't even feel that they have options even. And that's the bad thing. So Marquise has truly not just put the problem out there. He's delivered some solutions. Now, for some, that may seem like, oh, that's not possible. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And you do, when Godfather talked about the boat, I was reminded actually of the Passion story we just talked about, or just saw past resurrection of when Jesus was in the boat with his disciple. I said his posse. Jesus said his 12 disciples. Who do you have on your team as your posse, as your back? Who has your back? And in that, I'm saying that to say that the disciples invited him into the boat. Who are you inviting into your boat? It's time to look and see, what is this? What am I doing? And who do I need on my team that has the ticket to take me across the river? Okay. Same thing with Harriet Tubman. I keep going back to that. Harriet could not come back and free the rest until she knew how to do that. So again, Solution Zone, we've made it to this point in life where we have some secret sauce to take people over. Marquise, 20 years old, he has some secret sauce, and it's just exciting as all get out.
Dr. Cotton, I'd like to make 2 points, if you would indulge me for a moment. One is, somebody asked the great Harriet Tubman, who had freed some 300 plus slaves, why didn't she free more? And her response was, because they didn't know that they were slaves. Okay? So we've got to recognize the fact that we are in bondage. Okay? And how do we free ourselves? Recognize that you are in bondage. That's one. And that was your grant writer, Soroya, that you were talking to last night. She's stuck in a label, in a paradigm. And Marquise, you made a salient point that I don't want us to miss here. You drew a critical distinction between teach and educate. Okay? Labels. How do you transfer knowledge? That's what we have to be about here, the transfer of knowledge. And you mentioned that one-to-one that you're getting from Dr. Cotton. Dr. Cotton is an educator. He's transferring knowledge to those that are ready, willing, and able to learn and to take what they learn and apply it. I'll stop right there.
Wow, you guys are blowing this thing up today. But I want to kind of go back to Marquise and ask him a few more granular questions, because I thought you did a good job of laying out a solution that encompasses many of our social needs. But now I'd like to drink from that youthful wellspring about our economic needs, right? You know, we have to fashion a economic way forward, and there's some confusion on what that's going to look like. I mean, does it, you know, continue to pass through the sheepskin 4-year degree hallowed halls? Is it an apprentice? Is it an entrepreneurial? I mean, you know, what kind of economic considerations would the youth of our community place on the table for us?
And that question, you know, it will be hard for me to truly answer that question. And here's why. The system that I'm trying to create with this thing here is to be able to allow them to have a change of mindset and an understanding to where they can think for themselves. And the reason I can't truly answer your question is there is no complete answer like we have been taught that there is. I don't want to answer the question because then that puts us back in the box and saying this is how it's supposed to be done. My life, my entire life, I just wanted to do me. I wanted to figure out and learn how I wanted to do it. And if I'm going to be trying to help the rest of the community get to that place, you know, we talk about mindset and we said, we need to get people that are ready now, okay? This system is supposed to help the people who aren't ready yet, okay? We want to go ahead and pull the people in now and say, all right, how do you want to succeed? We have the abilities. We have different avenues everywhere. How do you want to succeed? That's what we can do with the people who are already ready. The system that I am trying to create with this is to try to get everyone else to that level of thinking to where they can decide how they want to shape their life and ultimately shape the world using their own mindset. So I'm going to have to evade your question, but that's how I feel about it.
I appreciate the effort at answering a very complex question on the economic side of the equation, but to our viewing audience, it's important for me to let you know that we are aggressively working behind the scenes to create solutions for the ready. And you guys keep hearing us use that terminology because what we're delivering is not for the masses. I think it was Brother Colbert that indicated Sister Harriet Tubman's challenge in trying to work through issues for the masses. We have this solution. We have this promise that we can deliver to you. We can get you to the other side of the river. And it may appear that we're walking on water, but we're not. We just know where the stones are. And if you can hear our still silent voice, we are pointing you to a solution that allows you to get in the boat that's connected to this rising tide that we've created to raise all boats. Next week, I'm going to ask the Godfather to unpack what's really happening in the Beltway as it relates to the economic connection to the Recovery Challenge, because this is an election year. Until next week, this is Walter Cotton saying, I'm out.
Cause now I'm at the bank with it. And for those that count me out, can see me counting up. Cause now I'm at the bank with it. And we don't even need a mouse. We keep on adding up. Cause now I'm at the bank with it. Ooh, and you know I got dank on me, we can roll it up. Cause now I'm at the bank with it. Now I'm at the bank with it. chillin' in my hay. Good vibes and some bad bitches understand. And the good got me for bad minutes. Lot of 10, some 5, lucky 7 average. I'm a lotto fucking stud, but on a damn ticket, call me Uncle Elroy. Long as you let me hit it, it's blunt. And long I even let you wear lip it. And we ain't gotta tell none of your friends. But if I beg your pardon, come again, and girl, don't play with it. Shit, we can skip third base, slide to my home plate with it. Sometimes I gotta get away from it, but right now I'm trying to get away with it, girl. So don't you play around. Stand up, nigga, still known to lay it down. No COVID-19, my corona is a crown. They say heavy is the head, never let it weigh me down. No way. Trying to take over the world, getting piggy and brave. Now I'm trying to take over the world, getting picky and brain, getting top down, screaming how money man changed me. I could've stayed the same forever, but when I got paid to be, so now I'm at the bank with it. And for those that count me out, can see me counting up, cause now I'm at the bank with it. And we don't even need a mouse, it keep on adding up, cause now I'm at the bank with it. Ooh, and you know I got dank on me, we can't roll it up, cause now I'm at the